Okay, today we're going to talk about some ways to simplify expressions. So specifically we're going to talk about the properties of addition and multiplication and the distributive property. So let's go ahead and start with the commutative property. There we go, the commutative property. This is a property that we use for addition and multiplication that allows us to add numbers in any order. And so I said multiplication because we can multiply numbers in any order. Let me show you an example and then I'll give you a way to easily remember this. Okay, so here we just have constants here, so this is pretty obvious. This is mental math we could have done, but let me show you what we're doing here. By taking the expression 2 times 20 times 5, we can also say that that is the same as, whoops, notice we've moved that 5 back to the front, 2 times 5 times 20. So all we've done is we've moved, let me get my pen, we've moved that 20 back behind the 5, and that becomes the same value. We had 2 times 20 times 5, which of course is 200. It's likewise 2 times 5, 10 times 20 is also 200. One way, we can also use this for addition. If we had 2 plus 5 plus 20, we could move those numbers around as well. One way to remember that might be to think about commutative or commuting when we're going on a bus or a train or a plane. We're moving back and forth. So that's the commutative property. Okay, and next we've got the associative property. So the associative property allows us to group numbers together that we're adding or multiplying. So again, we use these two properties for addition and multiplication. This time we've got 2 times 5 times 20, and what we're going to do is we're going to associate, we're going to group together the 2 and the 5 so that we can simplify. Again, with constants it's pretty easy, but this is going to help us later with variables. We're going to group together that 2 and the 5, then multiply by 20. Okay, whoops, a little too far. So now we've got 10 times 20, or 200. Okay, so associative property might help to remember. Think about associates, people you work with, you're next to each other or together, so you can group these constants in this case, but also it might be variables together. Okay, and the last one we're going to learn today is the distributive property. We can multiply a number by a sum or multiply by each number in the sum and then add them. The results will be the same. So here is an example where we've got 3 times the quantity 4 plus 8. So of course we could add 4 plus 8, which would give us 12 times 3 or 36. We could also distribute that by multiplying the 3 times the 4. There's the 3 times the 4. And then the 3 times the 8, and add those two quantities together. So 3 times 4 plus 3 times 8, and again we've got 12. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 24 for the same 36. Okay, so all we've done is distribute that 3 to the 4 and the 8, and we're going to be using this a lot when we start working with linear equations. And I'm going to pause for a moment. Sorry. Oops, sorry. Okay. We're going to be using this a lot when we start simplifying algebraic expressions and equations. All right, here's an example using algebraic terms. We've got A times the quantity B plus C. Well, we can't actually add B plus C because those are variables and they don't have a value right now. So again, we're going to distribute the A. We're going to multiply A times B. Here's our A times B. And then add to that the quantity which is the product of A times C. So we've got the product A times B, to which we are going to add A times C. Okay? All right, so here's some examples of the distributive property. If you think you've got this down, go ahead and pause the video and check back in a minute and see if you've got the right answers. All right, so I've got 9 times A, and I'm going to then subtract or add a negative, which is the same thing, remember, a 27. Okay? I've got 5 times x and 5 times 7, or 35. Okay, here I've added another term. So I've got my 6x, and then I've got 6 times the negative 4, so 6 times negative 4 is negative 24, or we could add a negative 24 or subtract 24, plus 9. We're going to talk about simplifying expressions tomorrow, but what do you think? Do you think I'm going to leave this like this? Nope, I'm not. I'm going to combine those two constants so that I get 6x and it'd be negative 15. Okay, now this one is just a tiny bit trickier, but I want you to pay attention. I've got negative 2 times n, or negative 2n, and I've got negative 2 times, really this is adding a negative 4, so I've got negative 2 times negative 4. That makes it a positive 8. We got to be really, really careful with our signs because that will throw us off later. Okay? Great. And so just a summary here. Distributive property. I've got A times the quantity B minus C, which is A times B, minus A times C. The commutative property, remember we can move things around. We've got A plus B is the same as B plus A. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to get this down one of these days. And determine what property we used here. All right, 5 plus x equals x plus 5. We've used the commutative property. I'm not going to write this out. Hopefully you have it on your slide from somewhere else. We've got the commutative property. Here we've got x minus 2 and negative 2 plus x. Again, all we've done is moved things around. We've got the commutative property. Here, look, we're grouping things differently. I've got the 3 and the y together here, the 2 and the 3 together here. So that's going to be the associative property. Here, notice I am distributing, hopefully, and here again I've got different groupings. So I've got the associative property. And finally, what do you think? 45x minus 35. Okay, so basically all I've done is undone what would have been the distributive property. So in fact, this is still the distributive property. Awesome. Okay, so normally you write a summary question. That's part of the wins sheet that I gave you. But this time instead, I would like you to consider the following and write an answer to the following. Evaluate A minus the quantity B minus C and the quantity A minus B minus C for A equals 10, B equals 7, and C equals 3. So you're going to take some time and think about what your answers are and explain whether there is an associative property of subtraction. So all we've really done today is worked on simplifying expressions by using the commutative, associative, and distributive property. Tomorrow we will add combining like terms so that we can start solving some simple equations. All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you tomorrow.